What's going on, Sumolings? Thank you for joining us for another product walkthrough webinar. Today, we are going to be diving into Jepto. Jepto is a digital assistant that uses machine learning to spot anomalies, get insights and forecasts, and automate repetitive data monitoring tasks. It is available right now on AppSumo, starting at just $49. But before we dive into the tool and start talking to the team, I want to tell you just 3 quick things. The first is that if you want to tell us a little bit about your use case or your business and why you're interested in Jepto, you can go ahead and do that in the chat room on the right-hand side. The second thing is if you have any questions about the tool or the deal or how to get set up, you can leave those questions in the Q&A box down below the video, and we will circle back to those questions at the end of the walkthrough. And the third thing is that there will be a replay of this available in case you need to step out early. You will be able to watch this as many times as you'd like. All right, Dale, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. It's early morning here, so keen to get started.
It's a great way to start your day, I think. I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to you for the walkthrough. But again, Sumolings, if you have any questions about the tool or the deal, go ahead and leave those questions in the Q&A box down below the video. As soon as the walkthrough is done, I will come back on the mic and ask you those questions. All right, Dale, you can take it from here.
Okay, great. All right, so what we're going to go through today is just a general use case of setting up some KPIs, anomalies, and maybe show some of the features that people might not necessarily see on their first visit. So we'll start off here at the portfolio view. And so this is what the populated view of an account looks like. If you're on a business account, you actually won't see this particular page, so you won't have a portfolio. But for everyone who's on an agency plan, this is your starting page. You'll notice here that you'll see every single client. You've got a quick summary of the features that are set up for that individual client. And that way you can really start with analyzing where you should spend your time. So once everything is set up, you'd come in here and you'd understand, okay, we've got 4 critical for Homer's Donuts. That's probably something that we need to look at. We can then drill further into those budgets and sort of analyze what you should prioritize. So what we might start off with is just the basic setup. So we're going to start off with making a KPI. So we can create KPIs from several different places. So what we start off with, we go to the KPI management page. By default, we've come from the portfolio and we haven't selected a client yet. So this page will show all the KPIs for the account. So if you go to create one now, we need to pick a client that we're interested to making a KPI for, or if we use the client switcher at the top here, we'll go directly to that client and then we can create a KPI directly. So what we're going to do is going to create a fairly basic KPI, which is just going to be sessions with a 10% month-on-month increase. So we're going to choose monthly here. And let's say 10% is our target. So what's going to happen now behind the scenes, we're going to make a live fetch to Google Analytics. We're going to get 3 years worth of historical data. We're going to then fit that data to the machine learning model and then provide you a prediction day by day out until the end of the reporting period, which at this particular KPI is set to monthly. So we can come down here and have a look. We've got a cumulative graph, which is the most common type of graph that people are used to, but we can switch that over to a series graph as well. And this just shows you a day by day rather than a stacking on top of each other in a cumulative view. We'll leave this one as series. So I think that's a nicer look of how we've performed against the average and then where we're tracking on a daily basis moving forward. It is a little bit harder to see on the cumulative, but you may not necessarily care too much. So it's up to your individual use case. I do want to point out down the bottom here, the KPI history. So what we really want you to do is understand how realistic your KPIs are. Let's say that you've got a client, you're an agency and you've got a client on board, you just wanted to set them up and they're giving you some KPIs to aim for. This allows you to have customer expectation management. So you can go back to the client and say, well, look, that KPI is great, but you haven't hit that in the last 3 periods. You know, we're going to have to make some serious adjustments to your account in order to meet that. And so you can be on the front and really talk to the client about how achievable that is. So once we're happy with the individual configuration, so the way that all the features are set up is step 1 is all the configuration, and then step 2 is the notification. So in this particular case, we're going to say we want a email, and we'll set it for 9 a.m. So once we create multiple KPIs and budgets as well, if you set the same day and time, we'll actually collate that into one single email so that you've got a nice consolidated view and you're not getting an individual email for each KPI or budget. Okay, so we'll just click create, and then now that KPI is created. So we can obviously do that for as many as we've got our plan limits for. Once you do start to have a lot, you may want to switch to the list view. The list view just gives you a bit better view of having multiple KPIs viewable in the screen at once. And both of our KPIs are on track, so we probably want to move on to something else. So let's have a look at anomaly detection. So quick background into anomaly detection. We had this idea that really it's hard to understand the movements in your data. And so what we wanted to achieve was a system that could alert you of anomalies, but not suffer alert fatigue. So a lot of notification systems that look at your data give you all sorts of email alerts and Slack alerts on metrics that you probably don't necessarily care about, or they don't give you the ability to understand, you know, what is going on behind the scenes of how they're crunching that data. So our approach to that was actually to give you as the user full control over the algorithm itself. And so we'll walk through that quickly. So I always start with whatever KPI that we're monitoring. We'll actually recommend you set up a anomaly detection on that. And purely because you may not be checking your KPI every day. And so you may want to get an alert if there's been a spike or a drop. And this is really key when you're looking at Google Analytics goals. So if someone sets up a goal and then all of a sudden a developer's coming in and change that particular goal and you're no longer recording that goal, that's when you want to know. And you want to know that at the time rather than waiting until the end of the reporting period and putting your client report together or your stakeholder report, and then you realize that you haven't been tracking data for that particular last 2 weeks of the reporting period. So no one wants to be in that situation. So what we've done here is we've left this as a daily time period, and then we've selected sessions. So we can see here we've got some data in here, and it's showing us here the anomalous data points. So we've got both positive and negative, and then the expectation of where the algorithm thought that we should have had for that particular day. So this really allows you to understand how often you're going to get notified. So if you look at that particular data set and you realize that it's very noisy, then you can come into the advanced settings and really sort of bump those settings down. Now, the settings here won't always reduce the amount of anomalies that are shown on the particular graph, and that really depends on your data set. So if you have a lot of variation in your data set, or you don't have a lot of data, so as in the numbers are low or the period is short, then you're going to get less ability to move the sensitivity of the algorithm around. So I want to sort of skip past some of this because there is some documentation on the advanced settings. And a lot of people won't need to touch this. It's really there that if you are a power user and you do want to get into the nitty gritty, then you can do that. But we don't see that many people having the need for it, but it is there if you want to. So you can set up anomalies for a single direction as well as both direction. And the way that we recommend that people look at this is that there's maybe different team members or different use cases for positive anomalies against negative anomalies. So let's say that you want to have everybody in the team aware of a negative anomaly, but you want, say, the account manager to have something like a positive anomaly. So that way you can kind of swarm on a drop or a lower than expected data point, whereas a positive, not everyone needs to know that. Maybe that's just an individual person that's involved with that particular client or internal part of the business. Segments. So we didn't necessarily talk about segments in KPIs, but they're the same thing here. So a Google Analytics segment, for those that aren't too familiar, is a way to refine the data set that Google Analytics is looking into. So you can add, there's a bunch of custom ones, but you can also add your own custom segments as well in Google Analytics. And what this allows you to do is choose, you know, a really finite amount of data within your data set. So you can do here, as it's saying, these are the basic built-in ones, so organic traffic. So if you're providing SEO services and you've got email and paid search traffic coming in, and you're not really interested in that, you would come in and select organic traffic. And then that way that particular sessions data is specific to organic, which means that you can cut out the noise in that particular case. You can even, you know, if you want to get down into the lower levels, you can extract out certain pages or behavioral data or technology data within Google Analytics to really give you the thing that you care about the most, and then leave everything else just in Google Analytics. So I think we might just, I think organic traffic is probably not a bad one to set up. So we'll do that. And then we might just, so the way that works here, obviously you can do email and or Slack. I prefer Slack because it gives me the ability to do a bunch of quick checks on the data, and then I can actually resolve this particular insight once it gets created inside Slack. And we might go through that quickly on the insights. So the terminology that we use in the app is that an insight is created when an anomaly is detected or an automation is triggered. So we've gone through, anomalies. Let's quickly go through automation. So these automation jobs have already been set up, but let's show you what you can do. Okay, so we've got the data source switcher up the top here. And so I'll quickly run through these so you can see where they fit into the different parts of the app. So Search Console keyword movement. So this particular job allows you to track any keyword in your Search Console account. And so you can track things like move into the top 10 or top 20. You can choose that value, move out of the top 10, 20, 30, whatever you need to do. You can aggregate based upon all devices or just a single device, and the country. So there is country specific. So if you're looking at tracking keywords in multiple countries, you will need to set up multiple automation jobs for each country that you care about. And then the search type, web, video, image. So let's just say we want to get a notification when any keyword moves out of the top 10. We do have an ongoing feature request to add regex to this particular automation job, which would allow you to refine this automation job to specific keywords. So if anyone is thinking, how does this work for individual keywords? It doesn't right now. It covers every keyword in the account, but we will be offering regex for that. You don't have to actually set a notification too. So if you don't want to get email and Slack alerts and you want maybe just a historic view that you can pull into Data Studio or just have an awareness of, you can actually skip that altogether and then just create that automation as well. Okay, so that's been added to our list. All right, let's go back and show you quickly. Oh, we have reached our planned limit. So let's. Okay, just a quick note on that too. So if any Summerlings get to the point where they want to extend their plan after they've stacked all their code, are going to be offering a discount for everyone on our add-ons, which I can get into a bit later on. But basically, you're not limited to the maximum amount of code stacking. So we'll offer you a discount on our standard pricing once you reach that that plan limit. Okay, Google My Business. So Google My Business is a really great tool for local retailers really trying to understand what's going on in their particular listing. So there's the standard ones. I'll kind of,
I didn't understand.
Sorry, I've got a Google Home in the background that thinks I'm talking to it. There's a G&B listing suggestions where when you have a G&B listing, you as a public user can make changes on that G&B listing. So there's no notification sent to you as a owner of a listing. You actually have to log in and periodically check for changes. So this particular automation job uses the GMB API to notify you of when the public has changed or when Google themselves have changed your listing so that you can go in and review those changes before they get published. There's no exact science on to when a user suggested change will be live on your GMB listing, but we have seen that between 2 and 4 weeks of a change suggestion, and it may not necessarily just take one, it may take a couple of users, but they will change your GMB listing. And so there's a lot of competitors adjusting other competitors' GMB listings. And so you really want to watch out for that. The other one, so Google review. So you obviously get a Google review email. And so we really created this one so that you could specify the individual star rating. So if you've got a client that gets lots of reviews and you don't want to be spammed on all of those emails, you can then turn those emails off and then just get which individual star rating that you care about. Probably only a 1 star or 2 star at most, just so that you can then have those proactive conversations with your clients about, okay, what are these poor reviews? How do we address them and make sure that their reputation is upheld? Likewise, for answers and question, you get a notification when somebody leaves an answer or question on your GMB account. Okay, Google Ads. So this is an interesting use case. So it can be used multiple ways. So what this does is that it checks your Google Ads change history in your account for the last change. And the reason why that you might want to do that is, let's say you're a business and you have an agency that you're contracting out your marketing. You can use this to ensure that whatever SLA you have between your company and the agency, that they're actually living up to that. So we've seen businesses say, well, I want to make sure that my agency is making a change at least once a week. So you would create this automation job and then we set this to 7. And then that way, if 7 days elapse and no changes have been made to either all campaigns or individual campaigns, you'll get a notification. And that really is to trigger you to make sure that things are going as expected. You can stop further notifications as well, because obviously if day 9 rolls around then and no changes been made, you will get another alert. So we recommend leaving this on unless you actually need to get an alert every single day. And the other use case is if you're an agency and you have a team of client managers who are all managing their own individual AdWords clients or Google Ads clients, then it's hard to understand whether they're doing their job because it can be quite chaotic in agency life. So what this does is use basically a bit of a hint to each individual person on the accounts that they're operating. And then they can say, okay, hey, Jono, you haven't really touched that client account in 5 days. Make sure you get onto that today so that, we don't look bad to the client, that we're not making optimizations. And so you can use it as an internal operations tool rather than sort of a compliance tool within your agency. Okay, Google Analytics. So we get a few questions about this one, about like what its use case is. So um, Google Analytics provides a change history at the so a at the account level, you understand things like users being added and properties being created, but it won't give you anything lower than the individual sort of property view. So what we wanted to do is check the account every single day for changes that are going on, for things that have a detrimental effect to your data. And the goals is probably the biggest one. So if you've got multiple Google Analytics accounts and you've got multiple people that have access to it, it can be difficult to inform each other about changes that you're making to those goals. So on a longer term view, you've obviously only got 20 goals in Google Analytics to play with. And so you tend to recycle goals after a while. And when you're doing historical data analysis and you might want to pull up, say, a year or 2 years worth of data for an individual goal, the power of this is this will actually give you somewhere to go and say, did goal number 15 change at any point in time? And because there is no record of that in Google Analytics, the only way to do that is to check the Google Analytics property itself every single day. And then what we do is we then alert you and then create that as a reference point that you always have to say, yep, on May the 12th, this particular goal was changed, the name was changed, and what we were tracking changed. And then you can actually understand how that would affect any data analysis that you do on a longer period of time. Or in the short sort of term, you can understand if somebody's turned a goal off. If you've got a client that is in control of their analytics account, they've got developers, you may be tracking something, pulling something into Google Ads for conversion tracking. If that goal's turned off and you're no longer recording those goals, then that's going to be to the detriment of your optimization. So you want to monitor that one. Okay, selecting a job for a website. So there's two we have here at the moment. Robots TXT change detection, it's fairly self-explanatory there. So this particular URL is set in the client settings. You will notice that this menu item only appears once you've got an individual client selected. And what this particular job does is it just pings your robots TXT file every single day and then lets you know if there's been any changes. And obviously everybody understands the importance of that. There's a great example yesterday of LinkedIn changing their robots TXT as well, and the fallout of that. Okay, page status checker. So this is a crawler, so you don't have to explicitly set individual pages for us to crawl. So we'll crawl your site, and then from there, so the base URL again comes from the client settings, and then from there we'll then check every single page that we can find from a link to be able to check against just the ones that you have checked. So if you've got a new site, maybe you want to include the redirections, but for most sites that have been operating for a while, you may not choose to actually get notified of a redirect. Again, you can limit this so that this does run every single day. So if you don't have time to action this every single day, you may want to just limit it to the first one so that you don't keep creating more and more insights in your account. So in the advanced settings here, so this is a regex pattern, so similar to what we would be offering in the Search Console keyword movement, is that you can enter a regex pattern here to exclude pages from the crawl. So if you explicitly know that you don't want to have certain pages crawled, then you can do that, as well as subdomains are a great example of that one. And the same as external links, you may not want to actually follow external links and check their status. So that is a quick tour of automations. They'll stack up here, and they'll give you the last insight that it was created. And then obviously their status if they've got any particular issues with crawling. Okay, so this is an example of an insight. It's probably a good thing to really sort of drill down on what insight card is meant to do. So the date here is the date that the card was created, and then we'll have information around this particular automation job. So we can tell that this one here hasn't been acknowledged and it hasn't been resolved, obviously, because it's in the active tab. But we can acknowledge this particular insight so that we can let our teammates know that we're looking into this particular insight, not ready to resolve, but definitely on the case. And so if you have Slack connected, this will send a updated Slack message to the insight that is sent, letting everyone else know. So you can kind of, if you work in Slack, then we do offer a lot of rich connectivity there. But if you don't have Slack, then you've got the visual indicator here inside the UI. So if we click on view, we'll get the expanded view come out. And we've got the ability to download the CSV for this particular automation job. If there is any external link available, you will see it up in the top right. So we've got some reference here. So we've got a number that you can reference internally. This is just a sequential number so that if you're talking about an individual insight, you don't have to use the ID. You can just say, hey, did you see insight 186 for Homer's Donuts as a way to reference an individual insight. The related insights, so we don't necessarily, I don't think we have any for this one, but if you were to have this automation job running over a period of time, any other insights that were created from this automation job will show up here. So you can understand how often those insights are being created from that automation job. Or if it was an anomaly, then you'd see all other anomalies for that particular client in there as well. And then we can just resolve this, and resolve this will just move this from active to the resolved tab. Might quickly go over the admin because there has been a few questions around connecting accounts. So you can connect a Google account and you can authorize the individual scopes that you need to. So you can connect as many Google accounts as you need. And likewise for Facebook, you can connect as many Facebook accounts. At the moment, we're limited to Facebook ads, but we are working on a Facebook pages connection as well. That will probably show up in the KPI management data source first. Integrations, Slack, Zapier, and Data Studio. Users, you've got unlimited users, add as many as you need to. The only roles that we have at the moment is an account owner. And the only difference between an account owner and a normal user is that the account owner can delete other users. Subscription, so this will give you your plan limits here, and then how many you've utilized. You've got your invoices and all your standard kind of billing stuff, and then for your add-ons. So for those of you that have purchased a code, you won't be able to use the add-ons until you add a credit card, but stay tuned for updates on the discount for the add-ons. If you are an agency that has more than 125 clients, then please reach out to us directly because we will want to work with you on a customized plan. The account, that just changes the name and the logo across. You cannot just know that you cannot change the time zone. The time zone is set at the account creation process, and this is just used for when you're setting the email and Slack notifications. We didn't really cover budget tracker. I think most people have got that feature really well. If we do have questions, I'm happy to answer that. But one of the features that we do have in the budget is that you have a threshold where the start and end is not the same. And so this allows more movement in a budget at the start of the period when you're looking at your daily or month to date spend. You've got a lot of variance at the start as you're starting to really find out where you should be spending that money. And then by the end of the period, you want to be as close to your target as possible so you can come in and adjust what that threshold is. So at the moment, we've set this to 5, and that really just changes what we consider on track. So if you're within 5% on the last day of your target, then you're on track. If you want to be a lot tighter than that and you say, well, I want to spend maybe within 2%, then you can come in here and just change that to 2%, and then all budgets will use that as their final threshold. Labels, we don't have too much time to go into labels today, but labels allow you to filter individual clients. So if I added labels and a filter, I would only see the clients that of the label that I've selected. We do have some documentation on this, but again, it's not, we don't have roles and permissions to restrict clients, but you can add, you can filter down individual clients. So if you only managed 2 out of the 10 clients that you've got in your account, you can then use labels to only show those 2 clients. So you're not worrying about the other ones taking up space in your view. I might leave it there. I think it's been a pretty good overview of what we can do, and then sort of open up to questions, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Simulings, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave those in the Q&A box down below the video. The question that we have right now is, do we get discounts anytime as Sumo links, as Sumo buyers for adding, or do we only get updates till the end of the AppSumo deal?
No, you'll get a discount at any point in time. So if from 3 months from now, you're hitting your plan limits and you want to increase usage, then you can reach out then as well. So we aren't going to be publicly giving out a discount code. You will have to email us, and that's just to protect that particular code. So at any point in time, please reach out and just let us know of what you're thinking, and we'll give you the discount.
Awesome, awesome. All right, we don't have questions here. That was very thorough, and it seems like you anticipated all of the questions that anybody might have. Tell us a little bit. I just know Simulings are really into roadmaps and
Yep.
integrations. What can you tell us about those things?
Perfect. Okay, so one thing I want to point out, because a lot of people haven't found it yet, but when you open the widget here, you've got the feature request. And so we built this directly into the Intercom widget. Well, we didn't, we're just using a tool that does that, but you can see all of the different requests in here. There hasn't been a lot of activity on this. We do track internally feature requests, and they're not always public depending on what type of request they are and which users they're for. But you can definitely leave a feature request here. For the roadmap, it's a lot of the stuff that we have in progress, we have talked about in the questions on the deal page, but if you are interested, we have the planned. We've got a lot in progress around a new feature. The reason why it's not listed here is that we're still working out some of the machine learning for keyword classification. So for those who haven't seen the comment that I've placed on the deal page, what we're working on is the ability for you to pull in your keyword data from Search Console. We will then run a machine learning algorithm to categorize those keywords into clusters, and then you'll be able to track keyword clusters over time for performance. And so we're working on the ability for you to define how many clusters, and then ensure that those clusters stay the same as keywords drop in and drop out. And we're trying to use Search Console because a lot of people don't have paid SEMrush or Ahrefs subscriptions. That will be the initial data source, and then we can open that up into potentially other data sources for keyword tracking. But keyword tracking is definitely on our radar. So that's, and then there's a change log as well on the website that you can see what we've actually implemented. We are looking for a lot more feedback on the feature requests. We have our own vision for where we want to go. The immediate sort of focus right now from a roadmap perspective is adding data sources to each individual feature. So for KPIs and anomalies, we only have Google Analytics as a data source. And for the budget tracker, we've got Facebook and Google. We've had requests from obviously LinkedIn, Twitter, a whole bunch of other different data sources. A lot that we won't do, but the main ones like LinkedIn and Microsoft advertising, we will do in the budget tracker as well. So yeah, just please just give us your feedback on where you think you would like the data sources added. There is some complexity around some of the data sources. For example, Search Console and GMB are delayed by up to 3 days. And so we're trying to work out from a monthly reporting point of view, KPIs at the moment end at midnight on the last day of the month. We would have to create a way for you to be able to have a KPI for the month and until that new data comes in. So there is some stuff that we're working on behind the scenes for that.
Amazing. We have just one more question. Sumalings, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box. This one from George says, your GMB GDS tool not related to Jepto, right?
Correct. So the free GMB Data Studio connector is not related. We actually built, I've got a blog post on this, but when we were first starting to play around with the GMB API, we wanted to look at visualization and we hadn't had the full app built at that point in time. And so we just decided to give it out for free. I haven't covered the Data Studio connector. I'm not sure if anybody wants me to dive into that, but we have seen some requests around
we just
creating
got a yes,
reports.
by the way.
Okay. All right.
We got
so
2 yes, please.
So there's been a lot of feedback around client reporting. And so I have again talked about this a little bit, but our view is that we don't want to recreate a reporting tool that already exists. So we love Data Studio. We think that it's got a great ecosystem around it of both free connectors and paid connectors. And the visualization is great. And if anybody who hasn't played around with community visualizations in Data Studio, definitely recommend that. So what we really tried to aim to do here is give you the flexibility that you want in creating your client reports without having to spend a bunch of engineering time on a report builder that would just take us away from creating efficiencies within your agency by more automation jobs or more data sources for the features that we have. So this here is the just a template that we created, replicating some of the UI within Jepto, and you can filter this down. So because I'm an edit view, you can probably see what's going on here with the different fields. But you've got KPIs and insights are the 2 main things that we can pull in. We haven't done budgets, mainly because a lot of people don't necessarily provide or have budget tracking in the way that they use it in Jepto to their clients. They can use the native Google Ads reporter, or if you're using Supermetrics, you can use, or one of the other ones, Power My Analytics connectors to be able to pull in your Facebook ads data. Again, open to feedback on that. So you can't do a direct replication of our graphs because there's a lot of stuff that we do to our graphs to make them look nice with the projection moving forward. This is about as nice as we can get in Data Studio. We do give you the ability to actually pull in the chart itself if you wanted to. However, Data Studio's image quality on a image within Data Studio is not great. So it's not the best experience for clients to see a bit of a fuzzy a graph. So you have the ability here to recreate this, and then using the actual data with a native time series chart. So you can show what the prediction values are, you know, inside your standard reporting, you know, from a individual KPI or multiple KPI. So you can actually choose the KPI ID here to be able to narrow this down into one KPI, or if you leave this out, you can collate multiple KPIs together. Not necessarily recommended, because obviously different metrics being tracked at once. Aggregating them doesn't make too much sense. This is just showing you the ability of cumulative versus series. So again, you can replicate that. You've got the client drop down. So if you do want to make an internal dashboard, you can pull all that that data in, and then you can have someone just quickly change that, and then all of the data filters out. From there, let's go to page 2. So this is the insights. Obviously, page 1 was the KPI, so page 2 is the insights. So this is just, again, a live pool of all of your data from your Jepto account, giving you the ability to understand what's going on. And this is great for clients. So what you are doing inside your Jepto account, you can actually provide a high-level summary, because they don't necessarily want to know the gritty details around, you know, the anomalies or the automations. They probably only really care about, okay, what's happened and what are you doing about it? So this particular feed was built for you to be able to showcase all the things that you're across. So you're across, you know, their keywords. If you had other, there's only a few different, yes, there's only 2 different types of jobs in here. This one's an anomaly, and this one is a automation job. But if you had other types of automation jobs in there, then they'll show up in here as well. And you can have a really good commentary on what's gone on. And that way, from the client's perspective, they're seeing all of this data about their account going directly into their report, and you don't have to do anything for that. You can choose, obviously, to keep the acknowledge or the resolved, to have that conversation with clients about what you're working on. Again, I think just playing around with Data Studio. Data Studio is a really good tool. The connectors are still new, but we're planning on improving that. So if there's data inside your Jepto account that you would like extracted out to have in a client report, because we don't offer client reportings, please let us know those particular things so we can build upon that. Is there any questions on that?
That's gonna be, I think that's it. Got
Okay.
no more questions coming in. I'm gonna stall for about 3 more seconds. I'm gonna talk really slow. All right. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, Dale. Thank you so much for your time. Sumolings, there are more in-depth webinars coming for newbies.
I think
what do you want to?
Just reach out to me. I'm more happy to connect with you and help you get set up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, Sumolings, for tuning in. If you have not already, you can redeem your code at appsumo.com/Jepto. It is starting at just $49 for a lifetime deal. If you get started with it, let us know how it works for you in the comment section. And if you have any more questions, you can leave those on the deal page. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Dale. Everybody have a good one.
Cool. See you guys.